Okay, shall we start, Ritu?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's few participants are still joining in. We are close to 140 participants.
Yes, okay.
So I'm starting and the recording is also begun, right? A very good morning, everyone. I, Ritu Nagpal, on behalf of Team Global Library, extend a very warm welcome to the certification series on Researchers Platform and Exploration to get published with Oxford Journal. Before we begin, this is for the attendees to note. This series is divided into two phases, that are two parts. The first phase would be a 2-hour session with a break of say 15 minutes in between as based on the flow of the session. And the second part would be the quiz or assignment, which will be shared with you on your registered email IDs. The attendees would be given e-certificates of attendance from Oxford University Press and also a certificate of completion. Dear attendees, please note it is mandatory to attend and attempt both the sessions to be eligible for the certification. Only those attendees who have completed the first phase will be eligible to attempt the quiz or assignment. The minimum marks required is 70% and above, after which you will be receiving an e-certificate of completion. The attendees will receive their certificates within 2 weeks on their registered emails, which they have shared with us. Last half an hour will be the question and answer session. Hence, you all are requested to drop in your questions only and only in Q&A box, which will be taken again towards the end of the session. Without any further delay, allow me to introduce the speaker for today, that is Ms. Sumita Sen, who is a Regional Training and Implementation Manager for South Asia and Southeast Asia, with about 18 years of experience in training small and large groups across diverse industries. Ms. Sen is going to take us through how to turn thesis into an article, difference between thesis and article, how to write a manuscript, types of journal manuscripts, how to select which journal you wish to write for, and how to upload manuscript on OUP platform, that is article submission process, the journal publishing cycle, and also what is open access, kinds of open access. I'm sure this session will certainly help us all to get ready to publish our work. Beyond this will be through this session, we'll be able to discuss manuscript forms available, highlight points to discuss, to consider for choosing the right journal for research. At the end of the session, we'll be able to go away with the understanding of publishing process and the steps we should follow when preparing to publish for the first time. Ma'am, I'm quite excited and I expect the same from the other attendees too. And we are very close to 200 attendees who have joined us. To begin the certificate series on Researchers Platform, I request Director of Global Library, JGU, Mr. Buddhi Prakash Chauhan, to share a welcome note before we proceed further. Sir, please.
Very good morning to all the participants and our resource person, Ms. Sumita Sen. I welcome you to this webinar on Researchers Platform, which is very timely and hopefully will be very, very useful to all the participants. We at the Global Library of Origin, the Global Universities, one of our activities managing the research publications of the university. And while interacting with the first-time authors or budding researchers, always we come across the need for some kind of knowledge which everybody should have for publishing their research. So all the researchers, you have good skills and experience of doing research, but reporting your research is another set of skills that you should have, which includes how to write a research paper or convert a thesis or dissertation into a research paper, or how do you prepare or write a paper, and then where to publish is very important. Which other journals or other sources where you can publish. The purpose of publishing in good journals, so that you are not only your paper should be very good in quality, but also you should be able to publish in good journals. Okay, and which by good journals we mean that there are different parameters of judging a journal based on their citations or impact factors or ranking in various citation databases. So these are the things that we should be aware of. And also these days, for quite a few years, the open access publishing is becoming very, very important. And so in the open access publishing, as all of you know, the user or for access you don't pay. Okay, but there has to be some kind of funding mechanism for open access publishing. So how do we manage that? How do we choose open access publishing? So these are some of the issues that Ms. Sumita Sen will be dealing, and hopefully, for all of you, particularly for the budding researchers, the students, and first-time authors, this webinar is going to be very, very useful. So with that, I close my welcome address and invite Ms. Sumita Sen to take over the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I request Ms. Sen to kindly take over and enlighten us with the required set of knowledge for the session. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chauhan and Ms. Nagpal. My name is Sumita, and welcome to today's session on how to publish with Oxford journals. I will be running you through, we'll start with an introduction to the company. We will discuss the differences between a thesis and an article. Most people actually are confused with this. This is a very important point. We will talk about how you can turn your thesis into an article. I will give you tips on how to write a manuscript and the different kinds of journal manuscripts that you can think of writing. We will also talk about how you can select which journal you want to write for. That's a very important factor, because if you choose the wrong journal, there is a 99.9% chance that your article will be rejected. So let's do our homework well. We'll do a practical demo on how you can upload an article on the OUP platform. We'll do the article submission process, a practical demo on that. I will also run you through the journal publishing cycle and briefly touch upon open access and the different kinds of open access that OUP has to offer. So this is the University of Oxford, headquartered in Oxford, United Kingdom. And it is the oldest and largest university in the English-speaking world. And Oxford University Press is a department of the University of Oxford. Being the oldest and largest university, our primary focus is always on education. We have about 43 online products. We've got journals, we've got ebooks, we've got medicine, we've got about 5 to 6 different products on law. We've got encyclopedias, we've got bibliographies, we've got handbooks, we've got music, we've got art, you name it, we have it. Pretty much everything. So this is just a brief look at our numbers. We publish approximately 7,000 new books and 370 journals in a year. This is what the structure of the company looks like. You have the University of Oxford, which rolls down to the delegates of the press, and which further rolls down to Oxford University Press, and our chief executive is Mr. Nigel Portwood. Let's take a look at the journals landscape. Who are the publishers who publish journals? We have a lot of commercial companies, commercial publishers who who publish for profit, I would say. They are called the Big Five. You have Elsevier, you have Wiley Blackwell, you have Taylor and Francis, Springer Nature, and Sage. Not so much for profit. Now, I would be lying if I said we don't make money. We do have to make money. We do have to pay salaries. We do have to keep the process of education going, research going, but we're not so much into profit. Our mostly university presses, like you have the Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, Yale University Press, Minnesota University Press. The list is endless. Everybody else who just publishes for the sake of knowledge. And we have research societies. I will talk about research societies in detail as we proceed through the session. Now, why Oxford journals? Why am I sitting and promoting journals? Now, it's not me, Sumita Sen, who works for Oxford University Press, who's standing here with a mic and says, hey, you know what, we are the best. No, it doesn't work like that. This data is collated by a company called Clarivate Analytics, which used to be Thomson Reuters. They do the journal citation report. They collate that report. And according to them, according to the JCR ranking, this is where we stand. All of you who are familiar with journals will know that it is the impact factor that decides whether a journal is good or bad. And 70% of our journals have an impact factor. I will talk about the impact factor in complete detail as we proceed, and because that's a very important aspect of journals. 80% of that 70% are in the top 50% of at least one category, and we have 6 journals that rank number 1 in at least one category. And these are the different categories that we have. So you see, we pretty much cover all the subject areas that are there. I think what we are missing out on is mostly engineering. This is the latest data according to the Web of Science group, the JCR ranking of 2019. 25% of our journals have ranked in the top 10 titles in their category. And 55% of the journals with an impact factor are ranked in the top 25% of their field. 75% are in the top 50% of their field. Now, while I'm talking numbers, I know when we start doing our research, we all start with Google. All of us. Google is always our first point of search. And what do we do when we type, let's say if you type headache, or even if you type stomachache, the first one that you get is from NHS. I'm taking medicine. And you will see that almost all the information that you get will say that you have cancer. So you're not sure whether your research is really valid or sure. It's all right if you're talking about a simple headache at home. But if you're really wanting to do research and you want real authoritative material, you need to go to good journals. And anything that is published under the Oxford University Press platform, you can be assured that it is authoritative, it is correct, and peer-reviewed, rigorously peer-reviewed. In this world of cheating, in this world of plagiarism, we check for authenticity, we check for how valid it is and how significant it is. Moving on. This is a slide from, I just created this slide to just show you what Oxford University is doing during the time of this pandemic. This coronavirus has left all of us trapped at home. We are all insecure. None of us know what's happening. And there is a lot of research happening around this. Oxford University Press has made all research, all articles, all chapters free for the audience. I'd just like to share the screen with you. I'll just take you to my platform. Okay, here we are. Can you see the Oxford Journals page? Ritu, would you just unmute yourself and say if you, the Oxford Journals page is available?
Yeah, it is very much visible.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So this is the Oxford Journals page. The URL is academic.oup.com. And we have about 369 journals on this platform. So if you wish to see all the journals, just click on Journals A to Z and you'll get the list of all the journals. You can browse by subject as well. And this is what I was talking about, the COVID-19 Information Hub. Let's take a look at it. And you'll be happy to know that the vaccine which is being developed by AstraZeneca, University of Oxford, is actually in its third phase of human trials. The first trials were done in Oxford, in UK. Then the second round was done in Brazil, and the third round is now being done in India. And we're hoping that it should reach us. They're saying autumn, but we're hoping that it should be there by January, February. So this is, you know, where you have access to a lot of free articles. There's a lot of information here. My most interesting one, because I'm not a medical practitioner and my knowledge of medicine is pretty limited, but I find this very interesting. Plenty of OUP blog articles which you can take a look at. There's a lot to read. Very interesting. So when you have the time, please take a look at this. There's a lot of interesting work available for free for all of you, depending on your field of interest. You can take a look at this. Just waiting for the page to load. This tab for resources is just a duplication of functionality. You have all these tabs here on the home page itself. There is a tab for frequently asked questions. So if you have doubts, just check and see if there is something that you want to know. And if you still don't get the answers, you can always write to me. This is the tab for authors. If you look at the tab for authors, everything that I will be discussing with you today is available here. Take a look, they're all hyperlinked. Take out some time and go through this. So you have the author resources. Then we have a resource for librarians. Librarians can download MARC records, they can download usage reports, they can request for training materials, videos, posters, any marketing material, brochures. They can always reach out from this platform itself. At the beginning of the session, I told you that there are 369 journals on this platform, out of which 1/3 belong to us, and the remaining 2/3 are published in conjunction with other partner societies or other research societies, as we call them. So if you click on societies and if you check our partners, you will be able to see the list of societies we partner with. And we have quite a few interesting learned societies. So you've got the British Council, you've got the British Geriatric Society, the American Journal of Hypertension. See, I'm talking about Journal of Hypertension because that's something that's impacting all of us. Some of it we're creating ourselves. Then you have the European Society of Cardiology, and so on and so forth. So take a look at it. This is just giving you an introduction to our platform. We shall now go to the real look and feel of it. I will be showing you different journals from different subject areas just to explain why and what there is here. So I've taken Medicine and Health, and I'm taking the European Heart Journal. This is one of our most coveted journals. You see, when you look at the homepage of a journal, on the right side, you will see that it is published in conjunction with the European Society of Cardiology. So if you click on that, it will take you to the homepage of the Research Society. There is a tab for issues. Now, the homepage of every journal will be the same. It'll just have a different look and feel, probably a different color or a different, but the tabs will be the same. So let's talk about issues. Journals are of two kinds. You have the current collection and you have the archive collection. The current collection, the archive collection is from 1827 to 1995. And the current collection is from 1996 till date. So depending upon your subscription, you can actually take a look at older issues. So you can just browse and see, if you go to, so you have a lot of archive collections here as well, because the current collection begins from 1996 onwards. You can take a look at this. This is the most important tab. Remember this while you're sleeping, while you're eating. Remember the Submit tab and the Author Guidelines tab. Each journal will have a separate set of author guidelines. You will need to read this before you choose your journal and before you start writing your manuscript. We will go more into detail as we proceed. Now, yes.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
It would be nice if you can take a journal which is related to social sciences or somewhere.
I will. The reason I have that on my mind, I'm just doing that because of the impact factor. I'll explain the impact factor.
All right. Thank you so much.
So I'm just showing you this journal for the simple reason because of its impact factor. It's got a very high impact factor. Now, what is the impact factor? The impact, all of us know that, it is the impact factor which decides whether this journal is good or bad. What is the impact factor? The impact factor is basically based on the number of citations. The more the citations, the higher the impact factor. So what happens is, the formula to get the impact factor is taken with the data of 2 years. So say if I want the impact factor for the European Heart Journal for 2020, I will take data of 1819. So number of times an article was cited in 1819 divided by number of published articles in 1819. So that will give me the impact factor. And the impact factor, the more the citations, the higher the impact factor. So we will take a look at about the journal and check the evolution of the impact factor. So you see there's been a steady growth and it went and dipped in 2019. Even the ranking went down from 1 to 2. So you see, you need to check the evolution of the impact factor. The reason I showed you this is what I will explain in a few minutes. Now let me take social sciences. Let me take African affairs. Here. You see the look and feel of the page is the same. This is published in conjunction with the Royal African Society. And do you see? It shows you the impact factor, 2. That was 22. Let us take a look at the evolution of the impact factor. When you take a look at the evolution of the impact factor, what happened to the evolution here? Do you see again, there has been a steady rise. Again, it's dipped here a little bit. Its ranking has gone down. So now let me come to the most important point of our discussion. You have seen that the impact factor for a medicine journal was 22 and for a social science journal was 2. Now you will say, but that is 22. That means this impact factor is not good. This is not a good journal. Now, which subject do we have maximum research in? Maximum research happens in chemistry, in life sciences, and medicine. Maximum research happens there. So definitely, when maximum research is happening in those subjects, there will be more citations. And the more citations you have, the higher will be the impact factor. Which is why we ask you to check the evolution of the impact factor and the ranking. That is how you will get to know whether this is a good journal or a bad journal. Now, let me tell you a small story. Let's say I run a journal. It's a useless journal. No one reads it. I give it to Mr. Chauhan. He takes it and he throws it into the dustbin. Bakwas, he says. I give it to Miss Nagpal. She's not bothered. I give it to you students. You guys don't want to read it. You say there's no material. None of you are interested. So, Dr. Amartya Sen happens to be my friend. I hope he was related to me. I wish he was related to me. Well, so I walk up to Dr. Sen and I say, would you mind writing a small article for my journal, please? So he obliges. He writes an article and I get it published in my journal. What happens? Because of that one article, people start citing that article. When people start citing the article, what happens? The impact factor goes up. Does that mean my journal is good? No, my journal is still bad. It is that one article by Dr. Amartya Sen which has increased my impact factor. Therefore, you need to check the evolution of the impact factor when you choose your journal, to check whether it's a good or a bad journal. Now, do you understand why I started with a medicine journal and then moved to a social sciences? Just to show you that depending on the kind of research that happens, on the kind of subject, the impact factor will vary, but you will still need to take a look at the evolution of the impact factor. Now I'm going to look at arts and humanities. You find African affairs here as well, which means this journal is a multidisciplinary journal. Now, if I asked you a question, if this was a live, a face-to-face session, and if I asked you, where do you think architecture should come? Which subject would it come? Now, I'm an English literature student. If you asked me, I would say, well, architecture would come under history. It would come under literature. Because, you know, it talks about the kings and all of that. My thinking of architecture is different. Somebody would turn around and say, no, it should be in social sciences because it is a society that makes a difference to architecture. Strangely, architecture also comes under engineering. So these are multidisciplinary journals. There are journals which come under, because they cover different subject areas, they come under different subject fields. Now, I'm going to show you French history. I'm wasting a lot of time, I'm spending a lot of time on the impact factor because it's a very important aspect of journals. So which is why I really want you to pay attention. If you see, French history does not have an impact factor. Usually journals which are totally under humanities, Scopus does not give them an impact factor. I'll show you one interesting one in law. I'll show you one very interesting one in law. Medical law review. You know, this is there under medicine as well. So laws relating to medicine, this is a multidisciplinary journal. It covers the medical aspects under medicine, and it also covers the law perspective. So have you understood the impact factor, the reason you need to check the evolution of the impact factor? At least I'm hoping you've understood. If you haven't, please feel free to write to me. I'll share my email address with you at the end of the session. So this brings us to the end of the concept of impact factor. Now I'm going to take a look at another law journal. Let me take the British Journal of Criminology. Here we are. Gives us the impact factor. Let's take a look at an old issue. Actually, right now, what we should be reading about mostly is cybercrime. That is what is happening the most now. Okay, so you see most of them we don't have access to, it shows. I'm going to open a open access article. This is the article. Now, when you see the name of the article, it also gives you the authors and the co-authors who worked on this article. It gives you the bibliographic information and it gives you the DOI number. What is the DOI number? The DOI number is the digital object identifier. I'll tell you why it's so important. The DOI number is a permanent reference number. It will never change. Now, research is changing every day. Every day people are finding out new things. Yesterday, the education system changed completely in our country. I'm sure you followed the news and you've seen how the education slab has changed completely. So we've been following a different formula. Now it's here. Maybe 20 years later, say in 2040, somebody is probably doing a research on, say, coronavirus in 2040. And there are so many articles, there's so much research happening now. So in 2040, how will he know, does he have the time to read all the research articles that have been published? He certainly doesn't have the time. But if he has the DOI number, he'll be able to pull up that article because it's a permanent reference number. It's of great use to the students, to the lecturers, as well as to the librarians. When you get your article published, your article will also have a DOI number. So when you are assigned a DOI number, you can share it with people around and say, this is my article, instead of giving them a name and telling them the name of the journal or anything. You can post it on your LinkedIn page. You can post it on Twitter. This is my article. This is the DOI number. And even 20 years later, people will still be able to pull up the article with the same DOI. So that's the importance of the DOI number. Moving on, you can download it as a PDF, and I know all of you love PDFs. I ask any student, they'll turn around and say, oh, PDF is wonderful, it's easy, it's light, I can read it whenever I'm offline. All of that I hear. However, HTML has an edge over PDF. You see this external linking, this external reading that you can do, further reading. This does not work in an HTML. You see all these hyperlinks do not work in a PDF. Now take a look at this. Can you copy paste a diagram or subjects like science, economics, geography, medicine, have a lot of history, have a lot of diagrams and tables and equations and graphs, etc. Now, can you copy paste from the PDF and attach it to your research? Maybe you use a snipping tool, you cut it and put it there. But when you have submitted your research, there'll be a big question mark. What is the source? Where did you get this graph from? What is the proof that you got it from here? So when you use an HTML, you can download the slide as a PowerPoint slide, which will also give you the citation information. It will tell you from which journal it was taken, why it was taken, the DOI number of the journal, what is its relevance to your research. All that information will be there. So while this page loads, while the PowerPoint loads, I'll just do a brief recap. We have discussed the impact factor. We've discussed the evolution of the impact factor. We've discussed why it is important to check the impact factor. We've discussed the DOI number, the importance of the DOI number, and we've discussed differences between the PDF and an HTML. Now take a look at this. This is called the Altimetric Score. It's collated by a company called Altimetric Inc. What does it do? It gives you the readership analysis, the download analysis, the demographic analysis, and the geographical analysis. So you see, so many people have viewed it and so many people have downloaded it. The information is here. If you click on see more details, I get very upset when things don't work the way I want it to. Why isn't it downloading? Yeah. So, you know, it'll show you the world map. It'll tell you which parts of the world people have read it. So you see people in the United States have mostly read it, a little bit somewhere in Europe, but no readership anywhere else. It tells you which countries and who are the kinds of people who have read it. So this is something that you might want to check. If you're doing a research on an act which is happening in our country, you will need to check whether the readership of that journal's article is relevant to your region. If you're doing a research on malaria and that journal is read here, it's of no use because they don't have malaria. They have no mosquitoes. So do you get the importance of the altimetric score? Let me see if this image is downloaded. It's still not open. Anyway, so now I'll go back to my presentation because the image is still not downloaded. Yeah, let me go back to my presentation. And can you see my presentation now? I'm hoping you can. So what is the life of a journal article? It's very simple. You have an idea, you write out your research, and what do you want to do? You want it to be published. Every researcher's dream. If you're in the field of medicine, you would want to figure out something new for a particular disease. If you're in the field of law, you would want to prove that this concept should be considered, like the cohabitation law in India. It's still under a lot of controversy. I probably travel a lot and I'd like to write a travel blog. We all have our own desires. Somewhere along the line, we all have our own desires. And getting it published, now some of us get it published as books, but when you're doing research as in real research, that's when you want it published in a good journal. Why? Because it will help you to connect with people of the same kind, of the same level. It will help you get recognition and also promote your research. And it's not an easy job. You know, I was doing a session in Manipal University, and there was this doctor, dentist, who was in my session, and he said, you know what, I'm not even looking at a journal with like Brain or something, because that comes with a very high impact factor. I'm not even looking at publishing there because it makes no sense. I'm just starting. So I'd like to go for a journal with a lower impact factor. Imagine a senior doctor telling me this. which means that getting your work accepted in a high quality journal requires a lot of hard work. Publishable articles should be based on solid scholarship. Now, you can't turn around and say, I was sitting under the coconut tree and a coconut fell. I picked up the coconut and I threw it up. Hello? Newton discovered that law. Just because you are changing it from an apple to a coconut does not make it a new research. It has to be something new that you are thinking of. Solid research. How you derived that, the methodology that you made you come to that decision should be sound and robust. You just can't give a hodgepodge and say, this is it. It's like, doing a math sum and just somewhere copying the answer. Like, I remember getting a lot of question marks in my maths paper because I would just write the answer and the steps would be missing, half of them. I'm still horrible with maths, but that's it. How did you get this answer? That is what is important. How did you come to this research? If you are saying that this law should be implemented in our country, why are you saying it? Where is your source of information? How are you coming down to this? The methodology should be very robust. It should be well written. We don't want you to be Shashi Tharoor. We don't want you to use big words, great vocabulary. We want simple, correct English. And the rule is always write in the past tense and always write in the active voice. It's not a cookery show where you say, now I have heated the oil. Now the oil is hot. I am going to add a spoon of garlic to it. No. It has to be written in past tense. I did this, then this is what happened. Therefore, I discovered this. It should always be in the past tense. Message should be clear and concise. Please don't go beating around the bush. Let's look at some more concepts. Now, the differences between a thesis and an article. Now, somebody straight out of college, PhD says, my thesis got A+. I can just get it published in any journal. Well, you're pretty wrong here, because the biggest difference between a thesis and an article is the audience. When you are writing your thesis, who reads your thesis? Your own professors read it. Your own professors will read your thesis. And if you have missed something, they will say, oh, Arvind is a good student. He probably he was not well. I'm sure he knew the answer. So let me give him marks. Your peer reviewers don't know you and they don't care. If they do not understand your methodology or your research, they will simply slash it down and reject your work. So that is the biggest difference. A thesis always focuses on checking how much you know. Kitna yaad kiya, kitna padhai kiya. Whereas a journal article doesn't want to know how much you know. It wants to know how much new you have found out. What is new that you have found out? A thesis can be pages and pages and pages. Calcutta University, the heavier your paper, the more marks you get. So people would just take extra sheets and write and write and write. I remember writing pages. But an article, if you will have to read the author guidelines, each journal has a different set of guidelines. One will say we want 4,000 words. One will say we want 6,000 words. One will say we want the abstract to be not more than 200 words. One will say not more than 400 words. Read the author guidelines. These are the basic differences between a thesis and an article. So how would you turn your thesis into an article? First and foremost, you need to plan your article. Think. Do your own homework very well. Have I really found something interesting? Is it really going to make sense? think about it. If you found something that really makes sense. You know, there is this big controversy going on between Mediclaim and hospitals and patients, where they are saying PPE kits should come under Mediclaim. Whereas Mediclaim says PPE kits we will not give. We will pay for the treatment, but we will not give you. So there is this huge tennis game that's going on. And eventually what is going to be the outcome, no one knows. But eventually there will be a law that will be passed around it. And probably one will have to give in to the new law. So if you have done a full research and if you are able to prove it, plan your work that way. You can write a letter or a short communication. Now, an interesting one about a short communication is this. Let's say you're doing your research, you're sitting and discovering a tablet for COVID. You take it and you'll never get COVID. Wonderful, that's a wonderful drug. Now you have done this discovery and you've got 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But before you can submit your research, bad luck, somebody else has already submitted the same research. And you see that he tells you, he gives the same findings. So you see, you read his research and you say, he's got 0.1, 2, 3, 4, but I have 5, 6 as well. He's missed these 2 points. So you can write your research and you can turn around and say that, look, I have read your research and this is exactly what I was doing. And I'd like to add 2 more points to this. So that's a letter of short, rapid communication, and it will get your work published immediately. So there is always hope on even a published article where you can add in your bit. Review papers. Review papers usually are submitted by invitation. The journal or the publication should invite you to write a review paper. However, you can check the author guidelines. The author, each journal has different rules for review papers. Check them out and connect with the editor of the journal for review papers if you wish to write one. Your second step is choose your journal. Don't write your article and then go looking for a journal. It's like, you know, buying your furniture and then choosing a house. You first get your house and then choose your furniture according to it. Because that journal may not, there's no guarantee that a journal will take your work. So you choose your journal, check the scope of the journal, whether it covers what you're talking about. If you're writing about, say, dentistry being accepted by Mediclaim, find out if that particular journal looks at these laws. Do your homework well. Check the impact factor, check the scope of the article. Everything is there on the journal's homepage. Do not gamble by submitting your manuscript to more than one journal at a time. Not only will your manuscript be rejected, you will also lose your credibility as a researcher. And I'm sure you don't want that to happen to you. Step 3, prepare your manuscript very well. Read the rules, the laws, the font, how much spacing, how is it, how many diagrams do they want you to add. Check everything before you start writing your manuscript. Get all the ammunition ready and then start your work. So what are the different kinds of research articles that you can do? You can do an original research, I've discussed that. You can do a rapid communication, I've discussed that too. You can do a review article, we've discussed that too. The fourth one is a case study. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a case study related to law ready in my mind. So I'm sure you guys would know much more. I remember doing a session with Gujarat National Law University, and my session was for 1 hour. And we went on, I think the argument continued for more than 2 hours, because we were talking about laws of the sea. And I said, I don't understand. The sea is open for everyone. It's a part of the universe. Why should one country have a hold on the sea? So there are laws for the sea. There are laws to go to the moon. There are laws for space. There are so many different laws. So case studies, I'll just give you another example of a case study. But this is, of course, not related to your subject area, but just good to know information. I had a friend who was suffering from severe UTI. She was in her early 50s. She was in and out of hospital. The doctors couldn't discover what was wrong with her. She was resistant to almost all the antibiotics. Nothing worked. She would be in hospital for 10 days. Her fever would come down. They would send her back home. After a week, again, she would be back in hospital. And they couldn't find anything wrong. She didn't have cancer. Her kidneys were fine. Everything else was fine. And she resigned to the fact that she was going to die of this. There would be no cure. And imagine in modern science, and she was going to the best doctors, the best hospitals in the city. Anyway, one day a friend came to visit her and he said, why don't you come and see my doctor? Just take his opinion. There's no harm. And he took her. This was an elderly gentleman in his 80s who could barely hear. And his chamber was in a garage. He was a retired elderly doctor. He heard her case, with a hearing aid. He heard her case slowly and carefully. And he said, I will not give you any antibiotics. I'll give you a probiotic. A probiotic will prevent your body from infection. And I will give you a cranberry tablet, which will help flush out the existing infection. So you take 2 tablets in the morning and 2 in the evening. Take it for a full 1 month and come back to me. She came out of the clinic and she laughed. She said, big doctors have failed. What will this guy do? In 15 days, she stopped getting fever. In 1 month, she was back at work. That's an interesting case study. So if you, in your field of experience, have a case study, you can always put it across. So that's another way of writing a research article. So how would you find the right journal? You will look at the impact factor. You will look at the ranking. Now, do you understand why I spent so much time explaining the impact factor to you? Why I chose a medicine journal, then a law journal, then a social sciences journal, just to tell you that different research impact causes a change in the impact factor. Look at the number of downloads. Check the Altimetric Score, you'll get to see the number of downloads. Check the dissemination of the journal. Check the Altimetric Score. See which parts of the world this journal is read. Check the links to societies, associations. On the right-hand side, you will see the name of the research society. Click on it and read up on the society. Does it work? Do you have a common goal? Are you striving at the same concept? If the journal's concept is the same as your thinking, works for you, doesn't it? So check the links to societies. Read the relevance of content and publishing ethos. It is there in the author guidelines. Check the speed. You will get that in the author guidelines. I will show you the publishing ethos and the timing, the review speed and time when we do the article submission process after the break. It is always a good idea to choose your journal first and then write your article. Choose the house first and then buy your furniture. Remember that. Don't write the article and say, okay, sir, will you take it? Okay, you don't want it. Okay, then you take it. No, it doesn't work like that. How would you write a manuscript? You need to have a catchy heading so that, you know, when people search, it comes up in the search index. It comes at the top. Usually we say after the first 5-6 articles that you get in Google, after that, everything is rubbish. It's not related to you. It doesn't make sense. And page 2 makes no sense at all. But strangely, I have found some very good articles on page 3, page 4 of Google also. But you need to write a catchy heading. You know, I was walking down the airport, and in between flights, I spent hours in different airports. And I see this book, Small Answers to Big Questions by Stephen Hawking. Very catchy title. You know, we have big questions, but small, simple answers. I bought that book. It's just the title of the book that made me pick it up. So make sure you choose a catchy title for your. But again, don't just choose a catchy title if it has no link to your research. You have to have the right keywords in it. The abstract. What is the abstract? It is a summary of your research. It is a summary of what you have found out. And who can write it better than you? If you asked me to read it and write a summary, I would write what my understanding of it is. And it may not match your thoughts. Therefore, the abstract should always be written by the author, because the author will be able to explain exactly what the outcome of the research is. We always advise people to write the title and the abstract last, because they are based on all other sections. Keywords we have discussed. Your method should be detailed and precise. It's like doing a simplification sum when you were in school. Each step needs to be clear. Otherwise, you probably got the answer, but your steps are not clear, then you still lose marks. You not only lose marks in peer review, you get a 0, reject. Results, it should include all your findings, whatever you have found out. Objectively, in bullet points. We don't want literature papers. Include the right diagrams, graphs, pictures, whatever that you need to include. Write a good conclusion. And if there are any references and you want to say where you got your source, check the author guidelines. This is an example of sticky notes to capture and organize your thoughts. So this, you see, has been taken from the Journal of Urban Ecology, and the Doi number is here. This is the name of the article. So you see, this I was telling you download as a PowerPoint slide. I have downloaded this as a PowerPoint slide. You see, it gives you all the citation information here. It tells you the source. So when you are attaching this to your research, and nobody will question you, where did you get it from? So this is a very good example of this. Another example is mind mapping. I will also show you this article after the break. So this is another interesting piece, you know, where you can use mind mapping to plan your thoughts before you start writing your article. So, you know, you plan out, I'm going to do this and this and this. After this, from here, I'm going to branch out to this and then write out. So you see, there's so much of homework that goes into just creating that one article. There's so much of hard work that goes in. So now I've written my paper. I've done my research. I have selected my journal, looking at the impact factor, reading the Altimetric Score, reading the author guidelines. I've written out my manuscript. I've got the title, the abstract, the method, all explained correctly. What is my next step? Am I going to keep it in my bank vault? It's not going to give me any interest if I keep it there. I need to get it published. So we will now look at the OUP way of getting it published. I'm giving you a 10-minute break. It is 12 o'clock sharp now. I will see you back at 12:10.
the audio off for the audience?
No, sir. It's that option we don't have.
Okay.
We can just put ourselves in mute and that's it.
So I have given some, chat, some suggestions for.
Yeah, I am just forwarding it to her. Probably she's gone for some break. Once she's back, I'll just ask her to take over.
Yeah, okay.
Welcome back. I hope all of you are back. Can I just get a yes from at least one person? Perfect. So welcome back to the session, and God, what have I done? And we will now take a look at doing an article submission process. But before that, since we were talking about writing an article, this is the article that I want all of you to read. Please read this article. Take a note of this DOI number. If you have a phone, take a picture and keep. This is from the Journal of Urban Ecology, the Art and Science of Writing a Publishable Article. If you read this article, you will get a lot of information, a lot of insight into writing. You know, academic writing is very different from writing a storybook, writing short stories. So all the rules, laws, the different strategies. You remember I showed you this sticky notes, mind mapping. So read this article. This is extremely important, things that you need to avoid. Here we are. So you get a lot of external reading as well from here. There are some very interesting ones here, like this one. So read this article. Please read this article. It's really, really useful. Okay, now let me first just show you my presentation. Here we are. This is where we were. So what is the overview of a publishing process? This is how the publishing process works. It's a preparation. So we've done our preparation. The first step actually took the maximum amount of time. Submission is what we will do now. And then we will proceed to production, publication, and promotion. I will talk about these three as we proceed. But we are done with this. Our next step is submission, and I'm going to do a live demo on submission. I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but I cannot use a law journal to do the submission process because I will need to create an account, and that will take up a lot of my time. So I have an account created with this, and the process is the same across all journals, the submission process. So this, if you look, every journal has this submit tab. Any journal and every journal will have the author guidelines. It is important that you read the author guidelines. It tells you the scope of the journal. It tells you the different kinds of manuscript they accept. I can show you one from a law journal and author guideline also. While that opens, okay, let's go to law. Let's take the British Journal of Criminology. While that's opening, so you know, it tells you the different, see, review articles. Different journals will have different rules for review articles. There is no one fixed rule for this. There's no hard and fast rule. Different journals have different expectations. If I come here and I open the author guidelines page here, you see it tells you. So it says the abstract should not be more than 120 words. Here it will tell you the abstract will probably be, you know, they'll have different rules here. Here I know it's 400 words because I've done practice on this. Manuscript, you see the different rules are here. If there are any charges, I will discuss charges and all of that with you as we proceed. But I'm going back to the journal brain. So you see here, it tells you the processing times. Most author guidelines will give you the timings, and it will vary from journal to journal. So I cannot tell you, you know, we take exactly X number of days. It will vary from journal to journal because it is not coming to Oxford. It is going to the editorial board. It's going to the editor of the journal. So whatever we want, the formatting, whereas the other journal here, the formatting was probably different. Right. Here. So read. Different rules for different journals. Read the author guidelines, very important. If you go to the about, you can check the editorial board of the journal as well. So if you go to the editorial board here, you can check who the editors are, who are the review editors. So if you like anyone, you can always select your reviewers from here. Or if there is a particular professor of your own that you would want to refer to, you can always do that. I'm using this submission site because I've already created an account for this. Most journals will ask you to log in with an Orcid ID. I will explain Orcid ID. Or else you will need to create an account with the journal, with that particular journal. So these credentials will not work, say, in another journal from another subject. If I am creating another account with the British Journal of Criminology, I will need to use separate credentials. This password, this ID will not work. I can probably keep the same ID, but I will need to create a complete account myself. So you log in. When you log in, you get the FAQs and the user guides. what you need to do is go to the Author tab. When you come to the Author tab, you see I've been practicing, I've been showing this to so many training sessions. You start a new submission. So you begin a submission here. What is the kind of an article that you're interested in writing? If you're interested in writing an original article, they're asking you to write the title. So you see, the abstract here says 400 words. But in the British Journal of Criminology, it said 100 words. This number will vary. I've just written save and continue. Upload your manuscript, upload the different images, diagrams that you need to upload. Save and continue. I've not uploaded anything. It's giving me an error message. Save and go to the next step. What subject category? Let's say I'm talking about neuromuscular disease. It's asking me to add keywords. It's giving me an option of keywords. And I save and continue. Again, it's giving me an error message. I'm still proceeding. Here is where it's asking me to create an ORCID ID or associate your ORCID ID. Now, what is an ORCID ID? An ORCID ID is a unique identification number. It stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID. It is compulsory for any researcher to have an ORCID ID to submit his work. I've had an argument with a particular group which said it is not compulsory. Now, we are not talking about predatory journals. I am talking about scholarly journals which are indexed by Scopus and Web of Science. And trust me, just like peer review is difficult, it's a very difficult process to get through. Similarly, for a journal to be indexed by Scopus or Web of Science to be there is an equally, or if not, it's a tougher job to be indexed there, to get our journals in that category. So we do not compare ourselves to predatory journals. So I've had a professor who's written to me that it is not compulsory to create an ORCID ID. But yes, if you're publishing with a good scholarly journal, you will need an ORCID ID. What is an ORCID ID? Let's say there's a Jane Smith who lives in Sri Lanka. There's a Jane Smith who lives in Australia, a Jane Smith who lives in Tokyo, a Jane Smith who lives in Singapore, a Jane Smith who lives in Spain, a Jane Smith who lives in Austria, Jane Smith who lives in Tanzania, a Jane Smith who lives in Dubai, a Jane Smith who lives in Scotland, a Jane Smith who lives in New York. So many Jane Smiths. I'm Jane Smith in India. I can always cheat and say, you know, this article was written by me. Same name. How will I prove that I'm not that Jane Smith? How will we differentiate? So it is essential to have an ORCID ID, just so that we can separate one Jane Smith from the other. You must create an ORCID ID to submit your work. And you cannot create multiple ORCID IDs. It is not, it's just like your PAN card. You can have only one PAN card. If you have more than one ORCID ID, it's a crime in the research world. So if you have a corresponding author, if you have another author working with you, I just added a fake name here. If you have anything, just check and submit. Again, see, I've not done anything. It's a required field. It's still moving on. Now you see, it's asking me to add references. You are allowed, different journals give you different rules. Here they are asking for up to 5 reviewers. You can choose any professor from your university. You can choose any person that you really admire in your field of study. You can choose the Chief Justice of India. You can choose somebody from the editorial board. You have the choice. Some journals, interestingly, also give you the option of opposing a reviewer. So if you know this particular person does not like me, you can say, I oppose this reviewer. The entire process is anonymous. It's anonymized till the end. So neither do the peer reviewers know whose work they are looking at, neither do you know who your work has gone to. So you are asked to keep adding reviewers. So you've added reviewers and you save and continue. Now I've not added any reviewers. Now comes a cover letter. You will never get a second chance to make a good first impression. When you apply for a job, you write a good cover letter because the person doesn't know you. He's not seeing you. He is reading your work. He's reading your style of writing. And he is assuming what sort of a person you are. If you write T-H-E-I-R instead of T-H-E-R-E, or if you say, I cannot hear you, H-E-R-E, the person will say, this person's English is terrible. So write a good cover letter. Again, simple rules, simple English. Just introduce yourself. If English is not your first language, please take help from professional societies. If there is a funding, if there is a UGC grant for your research, if there is an agency supporting you, right? If there isn't, no. Has it been rejected? No. Give your manuscript information. Let's say I've written 4,000 words. Number of figures and texts, I'm putting 5. Do you have any competing, whatever? You sign the consent. Proceed, fill up all the relevant information and submit. Now you see all this is missing. I still move to the next step. Now you see it's telling me all the mistakes that I have made, all the misses that I have done. It's asking me to review my entire work, correct everything. Only then will I be allowed to submit. Till then, the submit area is grayed out. Until I make these corrections, I cannot submit my work. So let us assume I have submitted my work. I have made all the necessary corrections and I have submitted my work. So I've done this process. What happens after this? After submission, it goes to the editorial board. So I'm going to just skip through these slides because when we don't have an internet connection, I have to depend on slides. I've already said this. Okay, this is something that I want you to remember. We do not have in-house editing services. But there are a lot of commercial companies that give this kind of service. I follow these 3 on LinkedIn, Edance, Editage, and Enago. I suggest you follow them. They come up with very interesting articles on publishing your work. They're really interesting. These 3 I follow, and there's another one that I follow is the Journal Edit. You can look up these, but please remember, we do not endorse nor guarantee that your manuscript will be accepted if you use these services. Don't turn around and say, but your trainer told me to use these services. We are just suggesting it. We are not endorsing any of this. I'm just giving you a suggestion to follow these on LinkedIn and get tips and ideas from them. This is another interesting point that I want to make. Check with the journal's website if they have a Latte template available for the journal. Now, what is a Latte template? Let's say, for example, you have, you are submitting to a journal which says the heading should be Times Roman 16 bold. The spacing should be ½ an inch. The subheading should be Times Roman 12, italics underlined. The spacing should be 3 centimeters, and then your entire article should have so many columns. Every time, will you keep on checking all these things? Then when will you type your manuscript? So if the Latte template is available, it's actually a document preparation system. It just makes your work easier. It just encourages the author not to worry too much about the look and feel. You know, you just continue typing, focus on your research, and the template, the class file will do that for you. Will read your heading and your font and all that, because it's already fed into it. So check with the journal that you are submitting to whether it has the Latte template available or not. When we moved to the submission page, you will have noticed that it took us to the ScholarOne page. Now, ScholarOne and Editorial Manager are not OUP products. Therefore, I am not authorized to tutor you on them. But you can go to YouTube and go through the tutorial on ScholarOne and Editorial Manager. Or you can go to the respective websites. They will have how to use templates there. But this is the only format that we use to receive submissions and manage peer review. So when you see, when we went to, let me see if I can show you that page again. When we went to the journal's submission page, just toggling between screens. The minute we went, you see, it took me to the ScholarOne page. We most of our journals take you to ScholarOne. Some will take you to Editorial Manager. But that's the one that those are the two that we work on. Yeah. So this I've already told you. The submission site wants you to create an account. I've explained this to you. C, we encourage authors. What is peer review? Like I just told you, just as how important it is for you to go through peer review, it is equally important for us to be, indexed by Scopus and Web of Science. It's that difficult a process. In this world of cheating, in this world of plagiarism, where, people just copy someone's article and even on Facebook, they'll simply copy paste somebody else's work and post it. At least give the person the benefit of authorship. So when it happens on simple social platforms, imagine what it happens in the field of research. It's an academic term for quality control. If there was no peer review, trust me, there would be no control. Everyone would take everyone's work and pass it off as their own. This is how the peer review process works. You've got your idea, you've done your research, you've written it out, you've sent it to the journal editor. It's reviewed by 3 to 5 experts in the field. and then a decision is made. If you get a green tick mark, good to go. If you get a pencil mark, means we want you to make a few changes. And if it's a cross, we're really sorry. Once you have submitted your article, and I'm being very, very positive, your work has been accepted. It has cleared peer review. What happens? The journal's website will send it to the OUP production team. So we are now in phase 3. Now what happens is, OUP, the production team, will send you a link to our author services site. You will have to create an account again with the author services site. It is not the same as the credentials that you used when you created to submit it to a journal. That was the account you created with the journal. Now you are creating an account with the author services site, with the OUP author services site. You create a new account, and we will send you, we'll assign a unique DOI number, 6-character DOI number to your article. So now do you understand why I spend so much time on DOI? Why it is important for you to know the DOI? And I strongly believe, you know, I used to have a professor, a maths professor, who always told me this, that little knowledge is a dangerous thing. If you don't know something fully well, there's no point knowing it. So you need to know how it is linked, what the background is, which is why we go into so much of detailing on explaining these things, because these are very important things. We will send you the 6-character unique ID, a link, and a license to publish. Until you do not sign the license to publish, the author services site will not move ahead with your publication. So you will have to sign that license, and you might have to pay any publication fees. Now, coming to publication fees, let me just explain. Publication fees is, you know, sometimes people want colored diagrams to be included. So there are certain charges for some of these. Otherwise, we do not charge anything from our researchers if they submit their work. Once you have created an account with the author services site, you will also be able to track the progress of your manuscript. So I think I've explained this point very clearly to you. You will be sent a link. Your article will be assigned a DOI number. You will create an account, sign the license to publish, pay any publication fees, and from that account, from now on, you need to keep checking with the author services site to track the progress. Once the papers are accepted, we will try and match it with the journal style. We'll do whatever we can, and we will send you a proof. If you want any changes to be made, that is the time when you're supposed to read the proof, make the changes, and send it back to us. If you cannot do it within the given time, write to us and let us know, asking for an extension. We do not make any changes to the content of the article. So if you are changing the entire theory, unless it is seriously impacting the academic accuracy of the article, no changes are made. If you have an embargo, you know what the embargo period is. From the time the article is accepted till the time it is made open to the public, till it is published. That is the embargo period. And during this embargo period, you will not be able to publicize your work. You can share your DOI number in a closed network within your institution, your college, or whatever. But there cannot be any publishing, any advertisement on social media. You can't do it till it is out to the audience. You're not supposed to talk about it. sometimes, especially in India, where people believe in astrology, and somebody says, no, I want my paper to be released at such and such time, such and such date. Mention IST, because a person sitting in UK or the US will probably look at, EST or BST. So mention the time zone that you want and the date clearly in your cover letter. I've explained this to you. Corrections will be made only if the publication record is seriously affected. Check the author's site on article metrics and social media rules, because they keep changing it regularly. Now I'm going to talk about open access. Now, what is open access? I had an argument with this person from Web of Science in a training session where he said, open access journals may not be good, articles may not be good. I said, it is your company that says our journals are ranked here. So whatever is open access is equally good to go. So what is open access? Let's say I've discovered something that I want. I've discovered, say, a pill to cure COVID in one dose. You take one tablet and you'll never get COVID. Wow. I want this research to be open to everyone. I want everyone to read it. Now, for people to read my article, what do people have to do? They have to buy my book or subscribe to that journal. But here, because I want it open, I have to pay a charge to OUP because I want it to be open access. Now, we are not Wikipedia. Nobody can go and change. It's not free and nobody can do anything. It's still OUP. It still comes under the OUP umbrella, which means even if the author says that I'm paying you for it, it'll still go through the same rigorous peer review process. It will take the same amount of time that other articles take and the same process. So this concept of I'm paying OUP, so whatever I write, they will publish. So you write Jack and Jill went up the hill and we will publish it. No, it's still under the OUP umbrella. So to make your article open access, there is a charge you will have to pay OUP. Otherwise, we don't charge anything. So this is what open access is. These are the different kinds of open access models that we have. Just check them out. If you're doing a real big research, you get grants, funding sources to support your research. So these are the different open access models that we have. And for any more information, any other doubts that you have, please write to me. This is my email address, sumita.sen@oup.com. Please do not write to me for your certificates. You will get your certificates in the next 15 days. Today is the 30th. You should get it by the 14th of August. Before Independence Day, you will get it. Please do not write to me and say, send me the certificate. I will be rolling out a quiz to all of you. And please don't send me your score. I have scored 71%. Please give my certificate. I receive about 50 emails a day telling me this. So it's a humble request. If you don't get your certificate by the 14th of August, then reach out to me. Till then, please don't write to me for certificates. But for doubts, questions, I am happy to answer all your questions. So I'm moving on to the question answer tab. Yes. Can you please, Ritu, would you take the questions forward? So that I can
discuss? Yes. The very first question which I'm going to take over is, what is the position on the use of first-person language in a manuscript?
What is the position of the first-person language? Well, first person is always I. I did this, I did that. As an English teacher, I is not a very acceptable format of grammar. I'm not sure whether that particular journal will accept it, but grammatically, I is not really accepted from the English language point of view.
However, most of the research takes place in a team. So when you report your research, you normally report, we did that or we did this. Am I correct?
We is acceptable.
Right. You were asking everyone to check one of the article, which in case if you can share the link or the DOI in the Q&A box.
Yes. What
really
I will do is when I send out the link to the quiz, I will mention the link of the article as well.
Great. Can you please explain more about mind mapping?
Mind mapping, it's pretty explanatory in the article itself. If you take a look at the image and see, you are doing your own, you're sorting out. Each one has his own thinking process of working. That's just an example. So if you read that article, it's clearly explained there.
I think the mind mapping or the concept mapping is a technique to represent knowledge in the graphics. So that because you remember the graphical representation of a knowledge much easier than the written text. So I think this is one of the techniques can be used not only in representing your knowledge, but also even while you can include even the teaching also, learning also these things. So this is just a kind of technique.
One prominent question, which is, repetitively asked from everyone, that what would be the eligibility to become an author? If you could answer this.
Well, I'm not the best person to answer this. I'm not an author myself, so I'm not the best person.
Well, see, I've answered a couple of questions on that. Actually, this is not the journal will not ask your qualifications. Okay,
exactly.
The journal will only probably check your article, the contents, what is the new in your article, and how it is been presented to select or to shortlist your article for publishing. So it is not your qualifications or experience that counts. Even if you don't have experience, you are just a graduate or not even a graduate, but if you've written a very good article, disclosing a novel thing or new knowledge, I think you have very good chances of being published.
Please explain. The next question is, please explain short letters as articles once again.
So short letters are usually, somebody's done a research and let's say you have something more to add to it. So you've also done this research and you've got something more to add, some more meat to add to it. That's exactly what a short letter would be. So you quickly write and say that, we're doing the same kind of research and I've also got these points. How about looking at these options?
Okay. The next question is how to analyze impact factor for interdisciplinary journals, like for law and economics.
See, we usually ask people to check the impact factor and the evolution of the impact factor. When you check the evolution of the impact factor, you will see how it has grown over a period of years. And if you go to the Elsevier website, and if you go to Scopus there and download, you will get to see which are the journals that come under which publisher. But that's going through, that's not my company. I cannot actually talk about a different company. But you can go and find that out. But I think the evolution of the impact factor is enough. I'll just share one more thing about journals. Let me just go to one. Let's say, you just come here. When you go to About the Journals page, usually at the bottom, you will get a lot of information Some journals have it, some don't. So you see, it tells you where we are. It's covered by these indexing services. So you can, do your research on your own. Just check them out. So the information is
Usually you can seek also advice, where to publish, I mean, for example, in our library, we do, publish list of, top 10 journals, or maybe the ranking of the journals in Scopus and, Web of Science, for people to know that where they should publish, their articles. So that could be another way, or much simpler way to, to explore where to publish.
Right, sir. So in that case, this is for the students. They may connect with us to get more details related to their research work, right, sir? Sir,
Yes.
if you can give them a little clarity onto the difference between ORCID and DOI. Sir, could you please answer this?
Okay. Well, DOI is for authors, for persons. Oh, sorry, ORCID is for persons and authors. Okay, and DOI is for articles. It's as simple as that. This is unique ID for article is DOI, and unique ID for ORCID, for author is ORCID. Now, why do we have unique IDs for authors? Let's say ORCID. You see, sometimes, we write our names differently. Sometimes we have the, first initial and first name is initial. Sometimes, or our affiliation also keep changing. We are working at University A, then next time we can might be working in a company or something like that. So because of the variation in narration of your name in various publications, it may be sometimes difficult for citation services or the databases to track your publications. Okay, right. So when you mention your DI, or if most publishers actually they require now DOI, ORCID to be mentioned in your papers. So once you have a DOI, through that DOI, since it is unique and stable and it's forever, your all publications are monitored together, and you can get your H index or impact factors of your where your papers are being cited. So I think this is for you, useful to you as well, not only for the databases. So I think that's how ORCID ID helps. Similarly, as Ms. Sen explained, the DOI helps in tracking citation of individual article, individual papers. So if you just click on the DOI or mention the DOI, okay, you can track where your paper has been cited everywhere. Okay, so that's how these unique IDs help.
So you need to say that it would be a good idea for the upcoming researchers to begin with setting up their own ORCID ID.
Yes, yeah? yes. If you have ORCID ID, it is much easier. Otherwise, your publisher, most of the publishers will ask you to set up an ORCID ID for you.
Great. Right, sir. So, Ms. Sen, moving on to the next question, why do we have to create an account for different journals?
That's the rule that comes from the journal itself. Each journal has its own, just like you have different departments in your university and you have a separate access card that takes you. You can't move with an access card from say, the law stream to the same access card does not work in another department, does it? It's just like that.
So in the same way, do we need to pay for creating an account, or is it publication we are doing it?
No charges at all.
Okay, but then there are a couple of journals which are asking, so that makes, that amount is for publication, right? If I'm not wrong?
No, they don't ask you when you create an account. No, send me a link if you see one that asks you to pay. Publication charges is only when you want to get your article published. That's where they mention that if you want to include, there are charges for certain things. Like if you want color images, the different ones. That I can send you a list of where it is. I'll send you the link to check those out.
Okay. Can you give us a little more details about the cover letter of a successful author? Any of it? Any example of it?
An example, I wouldn't know, but if I had to write a cover letter, I would always begin with a proper salutation. And my proper salutation would never begin with a hi. It would always begin with a respected sir, madam, whatever, with a greeting, and then introduce myself without boasting, you know, keeping the right amount of sugar and salt. Introducing myself in simple language, talking about what I do, and humbly requesting you to consider or take a look at my work, because this is what I have been doing and this is what my credibility is. So very simple. It doesn't have to be like one long essay. It would probably just be 3 paragraphs. The introduction of yourself, the introduction to your work, and a humble request asking you to accept my article. And thank you, and yours truly. And at least belonging to the old genre of thoughts, I still believe in writing yours truly, which means whatever I've written is true to it, instead of writing yours sincerely or anything else. It's always your truly when you write a professional letter, which means you are true to the information that you have given.
Yeah, it's something to what Ms. San has said about this. I think apart from the language editing services that she mentioned in her presentation, these days there are services which are actually which undertake the entire publishing part. For example, Expresso that we also use in our university. Some of the that we use it there. And similarly, the Scholastica is also, you know, another company which provides this kind of services. But apart from these services, there are tools available, you know, authoring tools, for example, which, you know, probably will guide you how to write a paper or something, how to provide references, or, you know, even how to write a cover letter. So, for example, Grammarly, many people use, to a great extent. There are other products from EBSCO or other companies, you know, which can help you in writing good research papers.
Right, sir. So again, my suggestion would be to all the researchers of belonging to JGU related to their research work, if they are planning to begin, or for setting up their Orcid Id, or preparing a cover letter, or planning something related to their research, they should connect with us so that maybe we can lend a hand of support to them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we actually, I mean, if you go to the Global Library's website, you will find some of the FAQs and the guidelines about that also. But we are also planning to organize, you know, short workshops, online workshops for the first time authors or new joinees, you know, very soon. Maybe they can join those workshops and create their Orcid ID and know how to track their, you know, if they're published in Scopus covered or Web of Science covered, you know, journals. How do they track their profiles, how to maintain their profiles, and how do they maintain their Indian research information network profile that we also maintain from the library. There are various things that we will be covering in those workshops.
The coming up workshop.
Yeah, just wait for those workshops to be announced.
Great, thank you, sir. So the next on list is Latte useful for literature, especially for humanities? Please elaborate.
Latte is actually a software. It's a class file. So it's a document preparation system, and it could be available with any journal.
All right.
It's not linked only to science.
Okay. Moving on to the next, if we are choosing our referee, how exactly is anonymity maintained?
Totally anonymous. Neither does the reviewer know whose work he's reviewing, nor does the researcher know who's reviewing his work. Total anonymity.
I have few students who want to ask questions. They have raised their hands. Once my list of questions here in Q&A box is over, I'll certainly give them a chance to say something. Next question, how important is the fact that most authors in a journal are PhD? Again, this is related to the eligibility. I'm just skipping this. Next is they are asking if you could really share your presentation. Will it be possible for you to share your presentation?
I'll have to just check if I'll be allowed to share it with you. I would probably share it with you and you can upload it on your library webpage as a
Excellent.
PDF.
Yes,
But
yes.
I don't think it could be for distribution to anyone's personal mailbox. You can upload it on your library page. But I'll still check and get back to you.
Thank you. Okay. If next question is, if my article is rejected by one of the journal, after rejection, can I try to publish it in another journal?
Yes, you can. The only thing is that check the author guidelines because each journal has different sets of rules. So, you know, if one is asking for Times Roman 12, the other is asking for Calibri 10, one is asking for 4,000 words, one is asking for 6,000 words. So you'll have to check and then do a lot of rework on your article to get it submitted to another journal.
This question, so all OUP journals are open access without charging the author? I think
no.
Very few of them.
Very few.
But there are plenty of articles that are open access.
Open access.
So if you're doing your research, and looking for something, doing a quick search, you'll be able to see, you know, just when you're filtering, just click on open access and you'll get a list of all the open access journals. Are you still able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just go to the home page and it's very simple. Let's look at something like cybercrime, the most happening thing right now. So when you are doing, you can just click on open access. Where did that page go? Just click on open access and you'll get to see all the open access articles that are available on cybercrime.
Yes, just to add to that, you know, there are some journals which are purely open access. There are some journals which are hybrid, which means that they are not entirely open access, but they do accept open access articles in them.
Right.
So, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Back to it. Right at the bottom of the page is this open access tab. And this, of course, talks about, and these are all the fully open access journals that are available. You can check. There are quite a few journals that are open access. So it's all there on the home page.
So Ms. Sand, there is a question. See, is there any difference in the fee that is charged to authors when you publish in a fully open access journals or when you decide an optional open access journal, you know, like hybrid journals?
I honestly will not be able to tell you anything about publication charges and all, because that is something that the UK team handles. If you put the question out to me on an email, I can send it to the relevant team and ask them to respond to you.
All right. Okay. Moving on to the next question. How does a journal decide or find reviewers to peer review a particular article?
How they decide is something, depending whether your research matches, whether you're adding something, you know, because we actually go through a lot of rigorous peer reviewing. So depending on the kind of research you have published is how we decide whether you should.
All right.
Yeah, I think normally from my experience, I can tell you that each journal has a panel of reviewers, which they keep, you know, changing, you know, from time to time, depending on the interest from the reviewers themselves. And when an article or, paper comes to them for publishing, and they do some kind of matchmaking. Okay, and then they ask the reviewers whether they would like to review a particular journal article, particular submissions. Once they accept it, then it is given to them. So, and it's a double blind process. So, authors will not know, who will be the reviewers, and the reviewer will not know, who has written this paper particularly.
Right. Thank you, sir. Okay, this is for all the participants, those who are attending this session. We are recording this session, so those who are looking for it, they may write back to me later by tomorrow, and I'll get back to you over the mail itself that how can I make this recording available to you, right? Okay, Ms. Singh, I'm moving on to the next question. This is a very beautiful question. After getting final approval from publisher and until article published, is it wise to put unedited article on ResearchGate?
No. Certainly not.
Okay.
I think that each publisher has its own policy to allow authors to put up their pre-published version on their institutional archives. For example, in our university we have a DSpace archives where the pre-published article can actually be archived depending on the publisher's policy. And there is a link, to see these policies of various publishers, which those who want, I can share that link. You can find the different publishers' policy on that particular website.
All right. Next question is, could you please refer me a good journal for African American literature?
There are plenty here. But I would suggest that just generally choose with the keywords of what you're looking at. If you go to arts and humanities or social sciences, you have plenty on African American. African Affairs is one of our very good journals. There are plenty of them. And on the homepage itself, there is a lot of free material on Black Lives Matter. So race and diversity. So you can check this out. Just minimize this. If you check, there are plenty of resources available here. And they're available for free. You have plenty of research available here on race and diversity. Especially with this Black Lives Matter episode.
All right. Okay, I'll move on to the next. Can you give more insights on methodology? What are the methods acceptable? Are these methods of research or writing?
That's a tough one because depending on the kind of subject, it depends on the kind of subject you're doing. Like if it's scientific research, the methodology will be different. So that's a real tough one. I don't think I can give any particular one size fits all. I'm not sure if Mr. Chauhan has anything to add.
Well, yeah, I think I agree with you. And in some of the forms, actually, you don't need to mention even the research methods or anything like that. For example, short communication, the quick communication, what you call it, something, for example, in France or Italy recently, when they discovered that, the COVID is being transmitted, people may not have symptoms also. That was the first time. And somebody wrote to Lancet, quickly, just an email. That itself was it had no method, just the reporting of the, So I think it depends on the type of paper or article or a communication, and also the discipline.
Exactly. So discipline is again very important. Yes.
For the social sciences, it will be more of an empirical research. In a medicine or in technology, it will be more of a experimental research, experimental research. So I think that depends.
Right. Okay. Can you give us something more on informal, non-threatening approach to plan the thoughts to begin the research with?
Non-threatening, I think the most non-threatening approach, I think, is using sticky notes and mind mapping. Sticky notes, I think, is the best one, because that's exactly how what I use for my presentations. Like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to move on to this. So that's how I work. In fact, my bedroom wall has a whole lot of them.
That's great. Okay, can rejected manuscripts be edited and resubmitted?
Yes. To the same journal? I'm not sure. Because if they've rejected it, I don't think the same. They'll ask you, has it been rejected by us? And then why?
Mm-hmm.
So you can try your luck. It's like, you know, you just might get a 6. Throw the dice.
Oh,
and also, it also depends on what grounds it has been rejected. For example, the paper may not suit to the disciplinary areas of the journal. So if it's rejected on that ground, you may resubmit to, you know, the relevant journal, you know. So this is quite possible.
So in that case, I believe, I mean, they should thoroughly review before submitting the article, they should thoroughly review the scope of the journal so that
Yes.
it decide on them, right? So, okay, moving on to next, generally how much old research data is acceptable? For example, if I collected data in 2009, can I still publish it based on that? Can I still publish something based on the same data?
You can if nobody else has published it. It's actually the journal's thought whether they want to publish it or not. That's a say that the editor of the journal decides. You can do it. There is no harm in trying. Why not? If there's something that nobody else discovered in 2009 and you've suddenly found that it was happening then, you can.
I'm sure, sir, you have something on this to add on.
I didn't follow your question actually.
Sir, I'll repeat. If a researcher has an old set of research data, yes, and somewhere it was collected in way back 2009, yes, so can the researcher publish again based on the same data?
Yes, why not? If you have a different interpretation of data, or you want to reuse that data for comparison purposes, or, you know, or historical purposes, exactly, why not?
Exactly.
Yes, the data can be, in fact, the reuse of the data or research data is a very important area, even for the libraries. That is something that even our library is going to embark upon now. The research data management is a new discipline, where, you know, I mean, not only the what you have published as a thesis or a paper, you know, based on the data that you collected, but the data itself has to be managed. So if somebody else wants to reuse it for a new research, yes, why not? Why do you have to collect, you know, the same set of data again and again if it already exists? So this is one discipline that, you know, one should actually work on, and I think if you can reuse the same data, why not?
So in that case, the query whomsoever, I think there's someone known to be Mr. Saeed. If they can get back to us, we can certainly help them back and you know, suggest them and guide them how to. I mean, they can very well reuse this data they have collected, because there are many databases also. They have a set of data collected with them, which can be reused, refurnished according to the for the next research coming up. As you know, the word research says that search, we are doing it the search again.
So for now, I think see, I would only suggest that, you know, there may be a, you know, data sets which are available, you know, and, you know, many researchers will use the same set of data for their own different kind of research. Okay, so there's a lot of data which is available, you know, in open access. There's a government data, there are bibliographic data which is available, and, you know, depending on your what actually you are researching upon, you can use the same data. So that same data will be, you know, can be used. It's not necessarily that you should collect the data for your research, but you may also use the existing data which is available, you know, either within your institutions or within in public domain.
Right. Okay. Missing the next one is again for you, that you've mentioned 4 types of articles. Kindly explain the short letter type article.
I just explained it to someone just 2-3 minutes ago. A short letter of communication is based on, say, if you have something new to add to an existing research. You've just seen someone's research being published, and you think you have something more to add on it. You can just quickly write a letter of short communication and say, you know, I would like to add these 2-3 points on it.
Right.
Yes, and very often these short communications are actually used to claim the intellectual property, you know, on your findings. You know, the people may be working on the same discipline, same subjects, you know, and those who report it first time, you know, they get the credit for this. Okay, I just cited the case of, you know, COVID-19, you know, symptomatic, you know, patients, you know, spreading the disease, you know, that was first reported, I think, in France somewhere, you know. So I think, so this is the kind of thing that they, you know, there was a question also, you know, who discovered this first. So, so this is basically, they reported it first, you know, one of the lady doctors, I think. So I think these are the areas, you know, which are used for that purpose also.
That's one of the kind. Yes, I agree with you. But yes, that is what actually I think it's misused. Most people use communication, you know, just to say, I did it first, me first.
Yes.
So I think it's misused.
Yeah. And then I think that finally you know, the editors of the journal, I think in this case also the Lancet actually investigated, you know, who should be given credit for this knowledge.
Yes.
Great. Next question is, does open access increase the chances of an article getting cited?
Not necessarily. It just has to be relevant. Why would open access, if it's relevant, it will be cited. People will cite it only when they think it is useful to them.
Right.
But our open access articles are as good as articles which are not open access.
Yeah. See, the open access facilitates the, you know, discovery of your paper, of your research, because people don't have to pay for, you know, for discovering it, for downloading it. Okay, so if you, for example, if you compare the same article published in a closed access journal and the open access journals, the closed access journals, people have to pay for to access, you know, okay, to download it. So you get a better chances of being cited if you publish in open access.
All right. Next question, do the review process, particularly relating to economics, follow double-blind review, or does it vary?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Would you please read that out again?
Do the review process, particularly relating to economics, follow blind review, or does it vary? I believe it depends again on the journal.
It depends on the journal, yes.
I think 99% of the journals, you know, follow double blind process, you know, and they are, you know, ranked higher. You know, there may be journals like, you know, student journal or something being published by, you know, some university or some colleges, you know, they may not follow any review process. Okay, so, but most of the journals of good quality follow double blind process, irrespective of the discipline.
Okay, next question. Are there any prerequisites to create any Orcid ID? There's no such prerequisite. You can simply go on and set up. You can connect with the library, and maybe we can help you in setting up your Orcid ID.
Yeah, you have to go to the orcid.org site and create a profile there. And you can also link your Orcid profile with your Scopus, you know, or WS, you know, so whatever is cited in Scopus and WS and other, you know, citation platforms, they are automatically reflected in your Orcid profile.
Right. Okay, suppose our topic is interdisciplinary topic. How do we choose the right journal that would be appropriate for the respective topic?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that is absolutely.
Interdisciplinary journal, just I think for every journal, you must read the scope of the journal, which will be there in the About section and in the author guidelines. Read the scope of the journal, check out what the journal, what kind of research it caters to, and accordingly submit your research and select the journal.
Right. In case of joint authors, how to go about with logging with journal and later the author service site?
So when you are submitting, you see, they ask you, are there any co-authors? You add the names of the co-authors. And they will also need to give a consent. So it is automatically the authors, and when it comes to our production team, the same link will be sent to both the authors. With the same DOI that is assigned to that article.
Okay. What is the role of the reference? And this is it. I don't have any more information on this.
What is the role of reference? Reference is the referees that you choose, people who you want. You're talking about referencing in your article, or are you talking?
I don't have any more information related to this question. If you can take both the branches. Or,
yes.
Okay.
I think if you mean by reference, by reference the referees actually for the, you don't need a referees, but sometimes it helps if you have a well-established authors as your co-authors. So you may have greater chances of being published. Sometimes people use that mechanism.
Maybe they might be talking about referencing also. What is the role of referencing? Adding references in the paper itself. So probably this could be another direction to this question. Anyways, what was the name of the software which is used for document preparation that you just talked about?
Latte. Latex. It's pronounced as latte.
Okay. What is the usual time of getting the feedback on our articles?
It varies from journal to journal. Check the processing times.
Processing time, right.
Just check the processing time.
Okay. Next question. How to avoid plagiarism while writing an article?
Just don't cheat.
Don't plagiarize.
Just don't. That's the simplest way.
You are the best person to know whether you have plagiarized. You don't need any software to know that whether your paper has been plagiarized.
Right. Okay, moving on to the next. If an article gets rejected by a journal, is it possible to resubmit a revised version?
This has been answered already.
Yes, we have answered this. Which journals are good for specially linguistic article publish?
I think we will answer the same thing.
Remembering names of journals is very difficult. I think you need to go to each journal and do your own homework.
Yes.
This kind of spoon feeding, I don't think at the researcher level.
Yes. Go to the library, find out the top 10 journals in your discipline, okay? Or maybe just go to Scopus or Web of Science, they will give you top 10 journals in your discipline. That's it.
Okay, this is a little long one. I don't know. Let me just read it out. So you had chosen your journal first before sending the paper for submission. So first, I would like to ask, what exactly did you mean by that? And secondly, any tips on choosing the right journal?
I spent 15 minutes explaining
That's what. This is by, I believe he's a student, Karthik Ranganathan. Dear Karthik, please connect with us. We'll be happy to help you in this query of yours, right? Thank you. Next is, what is the meaning of ISSN number?
So would you answer that, please?
Okay. So what Orcid Id means for authors and DOI means for a paper.
Right.
ISSN means for a journal.
A journal.
Okay. So this is unique number for a journal. Okay.
Let me just add something to this. A journal will not have a DOI number. An article will have a DOI number. A journal will have an ISSN number. An article will not have an ISSN number. The article of the journal will have the same ISSN number as the journal.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Karthik is very inquisitive and he is on to the next query. He is saying, could we contact you personally to send our papers for tips and correction, basically advice on improving the quality of the paper?
No, you can't do that to me. I'll lose my job unless you have a job ready for me. You can write to me for any doubts that you have generally, but you can't send me your paper, please.
All right. Next is, do journals prefer empirical research over other methods of research?
It's on the discipline and the subject.
Right. Okay. I'm coming on to the next. If a journal rejects a paper which we have submitted, do they share a feedback as well?
Yes.
They do.
They do. Okay. When will we have the session of lecture that includes the quiz?
No.
Yeah.
I will be, once I get the attendance report from Ms. Nagpal,
Yeah.
I will send out an email to all the attendees with the link to the quiz and the link to the article.
Right.
And that's about it. So immediately, as soon as I receive it, I shall send out, and the link for the quiz will be active only for 24 hours. You must score 70% and above to be eligible for a certificate.
Right.
And one request, please don't share that link with people who've not attended the session. It becomes a lot of hard work for me, to match the person's name with the attendance and see. That's cheating again. So don't forward it.
Let us wind up by 1:30. So there's 5 more minutes. Just pick up
Sure,
the
sir.
important questions
Yeah.
only, or don't take the repeated questions.
This, I believe, I'm just taking the last question. What is double blind review process?
So would you answer that?
I think you are a better person to answer that.
Double blind review is generally where, if it's not being, they make sure that there are 2 different sets of reviewers who review your work. And if the same feedback comes, then they know it's not partial or anything. That is why they do a double blind peer review. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, so double blind is basically that there is on one side, there is an author who has submitted the paper. On other side, there are reviewers. Okay, so there may be more than one reviewer of your paper. So the author will not know who is going to review or who has reviewed your paper. Okay, so normally the names have been omitted when the feedback is given, from the reviewers. And the reviewers also do not know who else has reviewed the same paper. So all these feedback are communicated independently to the author. Okay, so that's why it's called double blind. Okay, people do not know each other. Okay, on both sides.
Right. Looking on to the paucity of time, I'll just allow Dr. Vaishali to ask her question. I mean, she's been waiting from pretty long. If you can, both of you can permit me to do that. Can I just allow her to ask you the question?
Sure.
Dr. Vaishali, are you there? Dr. Vaishali, I've unmuted you. Are you there? Would you like to ask the question? I don't think so. She's there. All right. I'm just done with the questions now. So it's just that let me just wind up and thank you so much. This is for the attendees especially for lovely questions, and this is for you, Ms. Sain, and the director of the library as well. So I'll close down as knowledge is learning something new every day. which we all agree. I hope all the attendees must have been benefited with the extensive knowledge shared on this platform. In spite of these odd pandemic days, certainly we, the team Global Library, is keeping our spirits high and is highly grateful to our director, Mr. B.P. Chauhan and Ms. Sain, for the true enlightenment. And many thanks, and we'll certainly get back to you, all the attendees, via the registered email IDs which you have shared with us. And the quiz will be shared as briefed up by Ms. Singh, and accordingly we'll connect you back, connect over the emails. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you, Mr. Chauhan, and all of you stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.